Welcome again. This is Rich Hoyt from Cincy Hoops Talk. I want to thank everybody who visited CincyHoopsTalk.com in the last week, who listened to the podcast, followed us on Twitter, liked us on Facebook. We're excited to have you. Looking to have another great podcast today. And we're going to have a big preview. We're going to preview all of the high school action in both the Cincinnati area and also northern Kentucky. And both boys and girls will preview both sides there. And I am again joined by Rick Broing from NKYSportsblog.com. Rick, how you doing today?
Couldn't be better. Happy to be here with you, Rich.
Great. Hey, let's get going. Let's talk about the Ohio side of things.
Yeah, let's jump right into it. Rich, when you look at the Ohio side of the river this year, it seems like at the Division I level it's loaded. And I mean like really loaded. Division I talent all over the place. It seems as though 5 teams have sort of excluded themselves from the rest and really stood out and have a chance to contend. Just talk about those 5 teams at the top.
Yeah, when I look at the Division I teams, I'm looking at 5 teams that just on paper seem to really kind of stand above the rest. Now, this could be different come March, but for right now, I think there's 5. Let's go to the GCL first. You know, when you're talking about the top teams in Division I and you're talking about the top teams in the state of Ohio, you've always got to talk about Moeller. They're always going to be in that discussion. They do return just 2 starters this year, but one of them in particular is a pretty good player, big-time Division I prospect in Josh Davenport, a 6'3" junior. He's joined by a 6'7" senior who has committed to Elon. That's Tony Sabato. And then also they return Alex Voss and Ben Galimo, who happens to be their leading returning scorer. So, you know, I look for Moeller to really be in the mix this year.
Let me stop you right there. When you've coached in Cincinnati, so you have a unique perspective on this that I've always been interested in. When you play a GCL South team like Moeller, there's so much hype and so much talk in Cincinnati about GCL South this, GCL South that. Is there an intimidation factor or maybe more of a mental hurdle that you have to get your guys to overcome when you play them?
Well, I think there's kind of that stigma in the city of Cincinnati itself. Just talking with other coaches, you know, I think the GCL South is extremely well respected in terms of the caliber of competition that it has, and I've heard from throughout the state. I've heard even places outside of the state of Ohio, that the GCL is one of the better conferences in the state, or I'm sorry, in the country. And certainly just the way they play, the level of coaching. There's great coaches, top to bottom, in the conference. And there's obviously a lot of talent as well.
Right. And it's very, very structured, too. From the mental side of that, though, is that something you have to overcome, or does that not really play much of a role?
I think it depends on who your team is. I think, if you've got guys that have played against those guys, whether it be AAU competition or whether they've had success with them in the past, you're going to have less of a challenge. But certainly I think, when you're facing off against somebody with Moeller, LaSalle, St. X Elder on their chest, I think there can be that might be a mental barrier that comes into play for some schools.
Yeah, it's just always interesting to me because I look at them and I say, man, the teams they're playing sometimes seem more talented, but it's like you can't get over the mental obstacle of just playing them. They play such a structured style or whatever.
Yeah, and I'll go back to the coaching as well. I think they're phenomenal coaches, and I think that has a lot to do with it. And not taking anything away from some of the coaches in the other conferences, but you've got guys that have been at those schools for 20 years plus. At all 4 of those South schools, and certainly there's great coaching at the other GCL schools as well. So
no question. Let's jump into the rest of those teams there in that top 5.
Okay, LaSalle, defending state champions, they're back. They certainly they have lost 4 starters, but they do return first team All-State player Josh Lemons, really good point guard. Also bring back Chris Rodriguez, who played a lot of key minutes for them last year for the Lancers. And also, Connor Speed and Joe Berger really seem will be in the mix for LaSalle this year. So I think those are your 2 top teams in the GCL. I think you've got one team really Division I-wise that stands out from the CMAC, and that's going to be Withrow. Withrow might have the most talented team in the area. They're led by Devin Williams. Corey Albertson talked about him last week, a junior being recruited by a lot of Division I schools. He averaged a double-double last year. Big Roselle Nix, 6'10" kid, really is going to be a big body in the middle for Withrow. And then they added a key transfer from Hamilton, Corey Wise.
Good shooter.
Yeah, really good shooter. Really good shooter. And then they have some young guys as well. Add in Tim Coleman, Tyler Jordan, and one of the most exciting young point guards in the area, and that's Deontay Robertson. So I think Withrow is going to be right there as well, and they're going to, they have a really nice schedule this year. We'll talk about schedules later, but Withrow is going to certainly look to have a great year out of that league.
When you look at them, do you see a situation where it's going to be mostly about bringing those kids together and sort of buying into the same goal? Because they have so much talent on that team, and they're going to be really difficult to match up with. Yeah. But it's a situation where you got a lot of personalities, a lot of guys who have to fit in together.
Yeah, they have some guys that probably have not played as much together than some of the other teams I've mentioned or will mention. So certainly the chemistry issue will be a factor for Withrow, but they've certainly got the talent. If they can pull things together, then I wouldn't be surprised to see them in Columbus in March. Moving on to the GMC, a couple schools there that I think also are two of your more elite schools in Division I this year. Middletown, and Josh Andrews comes over as head coach for the Middies this year, taking over really what I think is one of the most storied traditional programs in the state of Ohio. Of course, Paul Walker, who I think might be the most successful coach that's ever stepped foot in the state of Ohio, coached the Middies from the 40s through the 70s. Josh Andrews will take over and follow in his shoes. Obviously, a few coaches have come in between them, but Josh takes over a really, really good program there at Middletown. And the cupboard isn't exactly bare for Josh. He's got two really outstanding players that are going to stand out for him this year. A senior, Giovanni McKnight. Corey, again, mentioned he was one of the top Division I prospects out there in the senior class. He was the GMC leading scorer last year. And also, big-time sophomore prospect is Vincent Edwards. So Middletown's going to start there with those two guys, and we'll see how far those guys can take the Middies this year. Josh's old team, the Princeton Vikings, I think they're also going to be play a big factor in Division I this year as well. Mike Anderson, one of Josh Andrews' assistants, will take over the Vikings. They've got a lot of experience returning this year. When you look at Dorian Jordan and Malcolm Smith and also center Dearius Young. So Middletown and Princeton, two really good teams out of the GMC. I look for them to be contenders later on in the year.
Yeah, and those teams, again, so much talent. It's going to be really interesting to see. Yeah, we've named 5 really good teams, but who surfaces, out of those top 5 will be the key as we go on. Talk about some of these other teams, though, from the GMC that could make some noise. GMC is loaded this year.
Yeah, I've talked to some GMC coaches, and I've heard a couple of them mention that they think any of 7 different teams could win the conference this year. You're talking about a 10-team league,
right?
And so that conference is going to be extremely competitive this year. Greg Richards' Mason team, they returned Darren Harris, who's been a 2-time first-team GMC player, also J.D. Sprague and Mike Van Clunen, a couple good players there for Mason. Wally Vickers, the Dakota East team, doesn't return anybody from his 23-2 team last year. Wally's team really dominated the GMC last year, went on a nice run, advanced to the regionals before being ousted. But they don't have anybody back, but Mark Minch is a pretty good player, and also a 6'8" junior in the middle, Zach Panzeka. They figure to be key contributors for East this year.
I tell you what, Mark Minch is a guy. If they can get him going, I know he hasn't played much in the past at the varsity level at all, but super, super talented. The D2 team that got him got a steal because he's Division I talented. Right,
yeah. And, they had so much talent last year. Minch obviously didn't start as much, but yeah. So Wally Vickers has got a good one there. Lakota West moving over in Westchester, Sean Van Winkle's team. I actually saw Lakota West play this week in a scrimmage. Coach Van Winkle's got a good group of young kids led by Monty Boykins, who is drawing a lot of Division I interest as well.
Yep.
Really smooth player. Also, a couple other kids, Tyler Williams, Ali Barnes. They're a small group. It's not a large Lakota West team, but a really good group of young guards there. Fairfield, Tim Austin's team has 3 starters back and 7 returnees, led by Brandon Murphy and Tim Fleming. And also, Coleraine might be an interesting team as well. We'll kind of see how they develop. They got a transfer from Lakota East, Alante Foster, and he'll be joined there with Brian Porter and Elisha Campbell, really to fill out a strong GMC group this year.
Yeah, no question. I watched Coleraine scrimmage actually this week as well against Boone County, Northern Kentucky team, and loaded with guards. They've got a lot of guards there. They can run up and down the floor and sort of put some pressure on you. But it'll be interesting to see how that team develops. They don't have much size. They've got a great athlete in Trayvon Hudson who's sort of in the doghouse right now playing JV. But if they get him going and some of these other guys going, they could be a dark horse.
Absolutely.
Looking at some of the rest of the D1, there's got to be a couple other teams in there that have a chance to sort of maybe surprise some people, I guess you would say. Who else should we not rule out here in Division I?
I'll give you a couple schools. First of all, Winton Woods. They are the 2-time defending champions in the FAVC, and they lost a lot from last year. In particular, obviously, Samaje Kristen, who's at prep school now, Xavier commit. That's certainly a huge loss, but they're at the top of the FAVC. They've been at the top of the FAVC for a reason the last couple of years, and I wouldn't count them out. They made a regional run last year, and they're certainly somebody I would factor into the Division I discussion as well. Another one, an interesting one, and we talked about these GCL schools. Not a particular strong year for them last year, but the St. Xavier Bombers. I think they've got a lot of good young players there.
Roderick Mills.
Yep, Roderick Mills, certainly a great talent, a sophomore. That's where Scott Martin's really going to start his team around Roderick Mills. Got a lot of other, a good group of juniors there. And they were extremely young last year. I think they're still going to be young this year, but I can't ever factor out a Scott Martin coach team.
No, especially when, like you said, they were young, but these guys now have a lot of experience coming back in that system already, and a great talent in Roderick. So I like their upside a lot as well.
Yeah, I do too. And like you said, they do have 1 year of experience under the belt, and it'll be interesting to see how they compete in that GCL South this year.
No question. Well, that's a great look at Division I there, and I think it's interesting when you just talk about how many guys can really, play at the Division I level, Division II. So much college talent on these teams. It's going to be a fun year to watch.
Yeah, we're going to talk a little bit more later on the podcast about some of these top players around the area. I mentioned a few of them there in that Division I discussion, but as you mentioned, a lot of Division I, NCAA Division I caliber talent, and a lot of it there in Division I in the Cincinnati area.
No question. Well, let's roll on to D2. Lots of teams shuffling between the divisions. When the OHSAA enrollment numbers came out, it really kind of changed things up a little bit. Talk about the impact that's going to have this year, especially on the state tournament.
Well, Division II, it seems like, was the biggest player in all of that shuffling. You look at Roger Bacon and North College Hill, who were Division II, 2 perennial powers in Division II. They dropped down to Division III this year. You've got Aiken, who moved down from Division I to Division II. So you've got Leon Ellison's team now at the Division II level. But the biggest one of all was certainly Taft. Taft, the defending Division III state champions. And I think when you talk about Division II this year, around the greater Cincinnati area, the discussion is going to start and it's going to end with Taft. They returned 9 players from that state championship team, obviously led by Adolphus Washington who was the Division III co-state player of the year last year, the MVP of the state tournament as well. And Adolphus, congratulations to him, just made his commitment to play for Ohio State. And whomever it might be, whether that's Urban Meyer or whoever, for play on the football field next year. And then also Dwayne Stanford, who also made his college choice with Adolphus this week, and Dwayne Stanford is going to be playing for the Oregon Ducks next year. You've got those two, and then you add in Orlando Berry, Jermaine Freeman, Jalen Lowe. Coach Mark Mitchell's team's going to be really, really stacked this year. The interesting thing, they had a very easy road to the state championship last year in Division III. Summit was really the only school that had that was close with them in any of the state tournament games. Their road this year is going to be a lot more difficult if they want to win a state championship, just to get to Columbus, I think, because Southwest Ohio in general is absolutely loaded at the Division II level. You've got your GCL schools from the Dayton area, Alter and Chaminade Julian. You've got a really, really good Dayton-Dunbar team. I've heard a lot of positive things coming from Dunbar in their scrimmages so far this preseason. And also Thurgood Marshall, who made it to Columbus last year as well. Taft's probably going to have to get through one or more of those schools if they're going to get back to Columbus. I'm looking at Taft as being the starting point in our discussion about Division II. But I think there's also a few other schools that you're gonna hear from the CMAC as well. I mentioned Aiken moving down from Division I to Division II. They've got a few pretty good players there. Willie Moore, who has signed with Duquesne to play for the Dukes next year. Also junior Austin Grimes, and then they got a transfer from Clark Montessori, Paul Woodson, a 6'6", 6'7" type big man. I think that's going to really help them out inside this year.
I love Paul Woodson's game, and people are going to be really surprised about him because he played at Clark Montessori. No one really knew what his game was like. He's a super, super athlete. I mean, jiu-jitsu black belt or something. He can high kick over the rim. I mean, just freakish athlete. But he's not. He's very fluid and very flexible. So it's fun to watch him play. He plays with extreme effort.
Yeah, he's long and agile and really gets after it. Also, in Division II, you got to look again in the GCL, and we'll look at Tim Monahan's McNicholas team. He's got a Division II, NCAA Division II player in Drew Hall that's going to lead them. I would look for McNick to be in the picture there in Division II. From the CHL, Indian Hill, they've got a trio of pretty good players, all returning starters, led by their point guard, John Griggs. Also, Timmy Krimchek and Austin Trout. So Indian Hill should certainly be in the mix in Division II as well. And really, the one team that I am excited to see this year is Franklin. They're led by Justin and Jacob Rawside, twins that have committed to play at NKU next year. And they also have a really good freshman, I hear, named Luke Kennard. I hear he's one of the more talented freshmen in the state. So certainly Division II. Discussion begins with Taft, but you got a few other teams in there that could make things interesting as well.
Yeah, I can't wait to see Luke Kennard some more either. Definitely a Division I talented player, getting high major interest already. He was at Xavier last weekend. Moving on, looking at D3, you just mentioned all those moves and everything. Taft's out of the way in D3. So does that sort of open up some more opportunities and give, more of an equal playing field for some of those other teams?
Yeah, it's certainly, without Taft, I think the road is going to be easier. I think Summit Country Day would have liked for Taft to have been in Division II last year because Summit certainly played well against them in the regional finals. And they lose a couple big guys in Jack Gustafson and Ryan Glass. And Ryan, congratulations to him. Is made it as a walk-on the Wake Forest basketball team. I'm looking forward to maybe getting to see him play a couple minutes here and there throughout the year. So those are key losses for them. They do have what might be the best backcourt in the city of Cincinnati, and that's Kevin Johnson and Antonio Woods. They're young, too. Kevin's just a junior. Antonio's a sophomore. So they'll certainly lead the Silver Knights this year. Their senior shooter, Tommy Cranhagen, is going to be out for a bit this year with a back injury. Unfortunate for him, Tommy's been a 4-year starter, or was a 3-year starter going into this year. So they'll miss his outside shooting ability, but certainly probably one of the top Division III teams in the area is Summit Country Day. Roger Bacon, as I mentioned, moved down to Division III from Division II. They lost the house last year after advancing to the regional finals again. They lost a ton of talent, in particular Jared Bryant, Paul Bird. But they do have a lot of young talent back. They've got Jake Westerfeld and Eric Edwards, and then also a couple sophomores, Carlos Rogers and Austin Frensos. I know Coach Neal's going to really pick the pace up for them. It's a smaller group as well, but I got to see them a little bit this summer, and it's a team that I think by March they'll certainly be in the Division III hunt in the Southwest area. Also, Throwen Clark from the MVC, them as well as Summit coming out of that conference. Scott Kerr's team, of course, advanced to the regionals last year. He returns Max Hassel, who's been a 3-year starter, and obviously back from that team. And he's got 9 players back as well. Did lose a key player in Al Upshaw, but Scott Kerr's team certainly worth mentioning. Madeira, an interesting team out of the CHL. They return Andrew Benintendi, a junior, big-time baseball player. He has started also on the court for Jim Reynolds' team for 2 years. Averaged 17 points a game last year as a sophomore. I talked to Coach Reynolds actually earlier this week. He mentioned that Brad Almquist, a junior who averaged 12 points last year, is out for a little bit with a knee injury that he suffered during a state semifinal soccer game. So a really tough injury for Madeira. We'll see how they bounce back from that. Going back to the GCL, Baden has 3 starters back. They're a small team, but pretty good crop of shooters. And then also one team, again, that I can't dismiss would be North College Hill. Jamie Mahaffey always gets the most out of his teams, whether he has talent or whether he has a team with lesser talent than other seasons. But I certainly wouldn't count his Trojans out this year.
All right. Moving on to Division IV. Lockland, every single year, has been the team to beat. They've got several consecutive sectional titles in a row. Are they the team to beat again?
Yeah, I think so. Division IV's lost a lot of schools that have moved up, in particular Division III, over the past couple of times. There's been a division realignment, but I think Paul Andrews' team. They've got a lot of experience return. They've got talent as well. And I think they have a great chance to extend their sectional championship streak that they have had. DJ Wingfield, who's getting Division I attention, and then you throw in Dylan Wedlock, Michael Beasley, Avery Barnes. Pretty good crop of guys for Paul Andrews' team. And Coach Andrews is actually he is closely approaching his 400th win, which is a great accomplishment for a great coach, I think, Coach Andrews. Seven Hills also out of the MVC. Gone now are Jake and Max Davis. Certainly 2 of their top players they've had over the past few years. But I think one of the best coaches in Cincinnati, Willie Hill, does have 2 starters back from his sectional championship team last year, Harrison Addy and Ryan Farron. And, I wouldn't count the Stingers out as well, and wouldn't be surprised to see them back in Dayton playing for a district championship. And one team that I would really look at also out of that MVC is Cincinnati Christian this year. They have all of their starters back, a couple really good shooters led by Ryan Arrington, Jordan Harris. That is a team I think that I wouldn't be surprised win their first sectional championship this year. Danny Salins has done a nice job there, and they've certainly got some guys that have been in some battles back. So the Cougars certainly will figure in the D4 mix.
No question. Well, just it's going to be an exciting year of Ohio basketball. There's no question. I mean, any way you look at it, there's some talent. D4 is down a little bit, but everywhere else, it's going to be very strong in Cincinnati.
Yeah, it is going to be strong. It's going to be fun. It's going to be exciting, and really with some of the realignment that I talked about, it's going to make things interesting at the Division II, Division III level. Division I is always interesting because you've always got really good teams there, and with Taft back in Division II, that's going to make things more interesting there. We are going to go to a break, but first we're going to have our very first Cincy Hoops Talk trivia question for you. We're going to have a couple of them in this show, and we don't have any prizes to give away yet, unfortunately, but we'll have a little fun with this. We'll give you your first trivia question. Here it is. This will be your Greater Cincinnati question. Taft won their first state championship last year, 2011. Certainly have a chance to do that again this year. But who was the last Cincinnati public school to win a boys state championship in Ohio? Again, who was the last Cincinnati public school to win a boys state championship in Ohio? And we will have the answer to that in our next segment. Let's go to break. Rich Hoyt with Cincy Hoops Talk, joined by Rick Broing. We're back at you. We completed our discussion on the Greater Cincinnati, Ohio preview. We ended the last segment with our first trivia question. And again, I'll repeat that for all of our listeners if you didn't catch it in the previous segment. Who was the last Cincinnati public school? This is before Taft High School last year. Who was the last Cincinnati public school to win a boys state basketball championship? And your answer is Woodward High School. Woodward won in 1988, led by Jimmy Leon, now the head girls coach at St. Ursula. So if you picked Woodward 1988, congratulations. You are a winner. Unfortunately, we don't have those great prizes to give away yet.
A winner of nothing.
Let's move on, Rick, to the Kentucky side of things. We'll talk specifically about the 9th region. And last year, Dixie Heights, with that young group of kids that they had, advanced to the won the 9th region, advanced to the Sweet 16 in Lexington. With that young crop all returning, is Dixie going to be the odds-on favorite again to get back to Lexington?
Well, they certainly have the most hype surrounding them. I think they have the highest expectations. Most people are familiar with all their players. They know about Brandon Hatton, who's one of the top sophomores in the state, a pure shooter. They've added a point guard, a dynamite point guard, that maybe even be an improvement from the one they lost last year, Matt Trammell, with the sophomore transfer Jordan Fox from Jackson County. So they've got a great backcourt, the best in the 9th region without question. But they've lost Zeke Pike recently, the returning big man, a freak athlete, 6'5", true post with a lot of experience, who's now decided to enroll early at Auburn as a quarterback. And so he's going to leave next semester, so he will not play basketball. So there's maybe some question now whether that opens the door. If there's another team that can contend with them, it would be the Holmes Bulldogs. I still have Dixie as my favorite, but Holmes is going to be very talented. James Bolden, a freshman that not a lot of people know about, a 6-foot guard, could have Division I potential at the NCAA level and play in college. He could make a big impact for their team. They have also got a junior guard in Quan Palmer who can really shoot the ball from the outside. And, of course, Dontel Rice and Deshaun Peterson, two great athletes underneath. And Charles Knox, also a big man. So Holmes, a lot of talent. Dixie is probably the favorite, but there's no question Holmes could definitely make a run.
Now, Newport Central Catholic, they played Dixie Heights in that legendary 4-overtime 9th region championship game. Correct. Last year. What are they going to be like this year? Do they have a chance of competing to get to Lexington?
Well, they on NKY Sports Ball we named Jake Geisler their center last year the player of the year. He's gone. He's graduated. He's at Jacksonville now. That's That's a huge loss, obviously. They do have one of the top 2 players in the region, in my opinion, returning in combo guard Brady Haichu. And it's rare. Brady Haichu is a rare athlete because he's not just like the best basketball player on his team and also plays 2 other sports. He's the best football player at the school, the best basketball player, and the best baseball player at the school. I mean, it's phenomenal. You rarely see a 3-sport standout athlete like him, and he could legitimately play college in all 3 sports at lower levels. So it'll be interesting to see how he does this year. Super athletic, can get to the basket. They've got a young point guard, and well, he's not quite as young anymore, Michael Buter, a junior, who's got a lot of experience, started all of last year on just about every game. So some good experience coming back. They've got a forward, and Andy Miller, who's played a lot now, coming back. And then they got some younger guys that should be able to help step up and make up for Geisler inside physicality-wise. But you're still not getting the player of the year back in Jake Geisler. It's going to take some time to develop something like that, and he was a special talent. So Newcat's going to be down a little bit, but they're still they have a great coach in Grant Brannon, a team that could slide up into that top 5.
Yeah, I got to see Geisler a little bit. Big, strong player, really.
And he was so skilled by the time that he left that he could really do everything at the high school level.
Yeah, big loss for them. Covington Catholic always seems to be in the mix. They got a new coach, Scott Ruthsatz, who's taken over the helm for the Colonels. Also, Beechwood, new coach, and Mike Miller. Will those teams be a factor? Who else is going to be in the mix in the 9th region?
Well, you mentioned Covington Catholic. They do. It's going to be culture shock at Cov Cath. It'll be interesting to see how the Park Hills Mafia and the parents take it, because there's going to be some young guys playing ahead of seniors that have been in the program, but there's only 3 seniors, so, not too many feelings are going to be hurt. I do think Connor Cleaves is a senior that will be able to help them at the varsity level and play a lot of minutes. But Nick Ruthsatz and Nick Frederick, the two guards, are going to be leading this team. Ruthsatz, of course, the son of Scott Ruthsatz, the new coach, transfers from New Jersey and St. Anthony's, where he was playing for legendary coach Bobby Hurley. Mm-hmm. So he's going to be very good, very similar to Scott Bibbins I mentioned last week, the standout from Holy Cross and then NKU players overseas now. He's going to be a very good point guard, one of the tops. Nick Frederick, a great share of the 2 guard, but they're going to be very small. I'd look for Brandon Ward to play for the 3, but he's another guy who's only maybe 6 foot or under. So I don't know where the size is going to come from exactly with this Covcath team, but they've got some good guards, and they're going to be very tenacious and intense, it sounds like, from what I'm hearing with the way Ruthsatz likes to coach. Michael Miller in a different situation. Beechwood lost a lot with the graduation of Tyler Fangman, who's now playing college ball. But they do have Corey Cruz, a 6'4 guy who's very athletic. They have a couple other guys. Cameron Vokey, a great football player, 1,900-yard rusher this year as a running back, is going to come back and just provides a lot of athleticism and intensity on the defensive end. So they have some pieces. At Division III, they'll probably do really well. Unfortunately, divisions don't mean a whole heck of a lot in Northern Kentucky, and it's not what you play for. Right. So they'll have to compete with Covington Catholic and Holy Cross and Holmes in that district. So it's going to be very tough for them to get out in Miller's first year. But he's a longtime Beechwood guy. He's not a guy who's looking for a stepping stone position. He's been an assistant forever. He's finally got his chance. I think it's going to be interesting to see what he does there. Talking about some other teams that may have a chance, Holy Cross has a great young point guard in Jalen Avery. They have a talented junior on the wing in Christian McClendon, who's kind of, turned himself into an interesting player because he's a wide body, he's strong, but he's got the skills of more of a 2 guard. If he improves his athleticism and his conditioning a little bit from a year ago, he could really have a big-time bounce-back year after having somewhat of a disappointing year a season ago. They're another team looking for size in the post. It may come in the form of transfer across the river. Antonio Campbell, who was at Cincinnati College Prep Academy, is now enrolled at Holy Cross, just enrolled last week. I'm hearing he probably won't be available until after Christmas, but either way, a 6'6 athlete to put in the middle in a region where there's very little height will definitely help the Indians out a lot.
Yeah. Going back to Covcath for a second, Scott Ruthsatz. Coach Ruthsatz had he hosted a coaches clinic back in September, and he brought in a bunch of the local coaches to give clinics, most notably Dan Fleming from LaSalle, Carl Kramer from Moeller, also brought in Dino Gaudio, former Wake Forest head coach, Xavier assistant coach. it seems to me like Coach Rusatz really gets it. Like, he gets it. He's already trying to acclimate himself to the basketball culture in the area. What have you gotten so far out of Scott?
I'd like to get to know him better. I don't have a great relationship with him yet, but it's kind of neat to watch from the outside initially, because sometimes I think when you get in and know people's personalities and stuff, you have biases or whatever the case may be. I'm really interested to see how his teams play this year. I'm hearing a lot that it's been very different from how things were at the past at CovCat. Practices are a little, faster paced and more intense, very competitive. And, I think it's more of a situation where it's a little more cutthroat at CovCat now. There's not much upperclassmen and sort of earn your stripes. It's the best players are going to play, and, you better be playing with 100% effort all the time, or you're not in the game. And I'm not saying Mike Listerman didn't coach that way, but I think it's just a breath of fresh air to some respect. But it's also going to be interesting to see how he meshes with the parents, because it's a unique situation there on the hill at Covington Catholic. There's a lot more than just the basketball side of things that goes into that job. And I think, like you mentioned, he's doing a good job of trying to make sure he's a public figure for the school and is seen, because, it's sort of like being the coach at UK, but on a much lesser scale. You've got to be more than just the head coach. You've got to be able to handle the personalities and parents. He seems to be doing a good job.
Yeah, I agree, and I'll be interested to see how the Colonels do this year and moving forward with Coach Rusatz at the helm. That's going to wrap up our discussion on Northern Kentucky high school basketball preview for the boys. We've got a Northern Kentucky trivia question for you now. And again, unfortunately, no prizes for all you Northern Kentucky folks interested. But nonetheless, we'll see. We'll test your high school basketball knowledge. Question is: besides Holmes' run from 2007 to 2009, advancing to the Sweet 16, winning the 9th region, who was the last Northern Kentucky team out of the 9th region to go back-to-back to the Sweet 16? Okay, we'll give you the answer to that after the break. I'll ask that again. Besides Holmes' run from 2007 to 2009, who was the last Northern Kentucky team out of the 9th region to go to back-to-back Sweet 16s? When we come back, we'll have the trivia answer for you, and we will also move over to the girls' side of things, discuss girls' high school basketball in Cincinnati and also in Northern Kentucky. You're listening to Cincy Hoops Talk. Rich Hoyt, Cincy Hoops Talk, back with Rick Broering. Got an answer on our trivia question we asked at the end of the last segment. Northern Kentucky high school basketball trivia question. Besides Holmes' run from 2007 to 2009, who was the last Northern Kentucky team to go to back-to-back Sweet 16s and win the 9th region? Your answer, the Highlands Bluebirds back in 1998, 1999. Rick, there were a couple big fellas that played on those teams.
Yes, there were. Jared Lorenzen, the Pillsbury Throwboy, as they called him once he got to Kentucky, and then later won a Super Bowl ring with the New York Giants. He is now out of the NFL, but coaching the quarterbacks at Highlands and preparing a young Pat Tolles for what he's about to face in Lexington and sort of getting him ready for the Big Blue Nation. And then Derek Smith, of course, played basketball at NKU as well. Was a big tight end for that football team that won state championships as well. So very athletic duo that sort of went there and raised the level of play at Highlands in both sports.
Big athletic duo.
Yeah, big being the operative word. Rich, let's jump into the girls' side of the preview and let's go back across the river to the Buckeye State. Looking at the Cincinnati girls setup, we talked about the GMC with the boys. We're right back there with the girls, Rich. GMC loaded on the girls' side of things.
Yeah, and the GMC might have the 5 top teams in the area for girls this year. The two teams really that are probably going to get the most attention, kind of for different reasons. We'll first start with Princeton, led by Kelsey Mitchell, who is ranked the number one player in the country in her sophomore class. Kelsey Mitchell, the daughter of Taft High School coach Mark Mitchell, she is going to be back. She had a great freshman year for Jill Phillips' squad, and she's going to be joined by her sister, obviously a sophomore as well, Chelsea Mitchell, and then also Emily Roper, a senior, pretty good player as well. They'll lead the Vikings this year, and certainly they'll be in the running for a trip to Columbus. Really, probably might be the deepest team in the area is Lakota East. Lakota East is several players that are going to move on and play at the Division I level, led by Tazzy Shaw, a senior, who's going to play at Marshall. Olivia Rencher, a senior, that's going to play at Butler. Whitney Wyckoff, who's headed to Yale. Also, Alyssa Gruenkamp, that is going to be playing at Division II Findlay. And then Molly Blomer as well, a senior. Lakota East is going to be a really good team, really deep there. Sycamore as well, pretty good, led by Carrie Kleist, a senior, Alexis Newbolt, a senior, but their stud is Chloe Pavlik, who is headed to Maryland, part of Maryland's 6th-ranked recruiting class. And also, you can throw in Amani Outlaw, a junior, for Sycamore. That's a pretty good squad they have. Also, Mason, led by Xavier commit Brianna Glover, Jenna Gunn, a sophomore, Kayla McDowell, junior. They will be leading the Comets this year. And at Coleraine, Shelley Harper, a senior, headed to Eastern Kentucky, and Shira Jones, another senior. That's a really good crop of 5 teams there that are going to just do battle in the GMC. But I didn't even mention the best player in that conference, and maybe the best player in the state out of the senior class, and that's Rayshawn Gaffney, who's headed to play at Virginia next year.
She's better than the Mitchell girl?
Well, I'm talking senior class.
Well, okay.
Yeah, senior class. Gaffney might be towards the top in the state of Ohio. Yeah,
tons,
just absolutely loaded. So the GMC, watch out for that this year in the greater Cincinnati area. Moving on, other teams I think that could be interesting in the GGCL. St. Ursula, Jimmy Leon's team will return Mackenzie Losing, who has signed with Buffalo, and then also Maria Napolitana, who will be headed to Quinnipiac next year. They should look to make some noise. Macaulay returns Melissa Scherpenberg, a senior, headed to Ohio Dominican. Mount Notre Dame, that tradition, looking to come back. Jasmine Hayes, who is headed to Lafayette. And then also Ursuline looks to be in the mix there in the GGCL as well. In the FAVC, a couple teams to look out for: Winton Woods, Amani Partlow, a sophomore, and also Chanel Stokes, a senior, that's signed with Wofford. And Winton Woods has 4 starters back from a team that went 17-5. And then Turpin as well. Look out for them in the FAVC. The East there, Mariah Gator, senior, will lead Turpin this year. Out of the CMAC, watch out for Withrow. Lauren Drew, a senior, will lead the Tigers this year. And then also, one other name I'll throw out at you, a player that's a pretty good player around the area, from up at Wilmington, Amina Affini. She returns for Butch Hooper's 18-5 team from last year, and Affini is has committed to play at Lehigh next year.
All right. Well, it sounds pretty good there at the top. Let's move on to some of the other teams at the lower divisions.
At the Division II level, Indian Hill probably will be in the running again. They've had some really good teams over the years. Dr. Scott Rogers has stepped aside at this point, and former Northern Kentucky men's assistant coach David Marshall has taken over for Indian Hill. Again, his cupboard is not bare. He returns Nicole Bell, a senior who's committed to Ball State. In the GGCL, McNicholas, Greg Flammer's team has a really strong front line of Allie Miller, Katie Rogers, and Lauren Lamping. Out of the CHL, Wyoming looks to have a good team again under first-year coach Travis Glendening. And then also a couple other schools to throw out at you, New Richmond and Talawanda. Talawanda has a girl by the name of Anna Richter, a sophomore. It's going to be a pretty good player for the Braves.
All right, then looking at Division III.
Division III, the discussion's got to start certainly with the Baden Rams. They're the defending GGCL Scarlet champions. They're going to be led by Kara Gerbis and Abby Fritz, both 3-year starters for Tom Sunderman's team, and they should look for them to make a lot of noise in the Division III state tournament this coming February and March. Also in Division III, Bernie Cropper, who always does a really nice job at Georgetown. He's got Casey Carter, a senior, returning for Georgetown. Middletown Madison had a lot of success over the past few years. They lose McDonald's All-American and Allie Malott. They do return Olivia Philpott, though, a sophomore, a pretty talented player. CHL, look for Madeira to be really strong. Fayetteville should be strong. And also out of the GGCL, Fenwick should have a nice team. Moving over to Division IV, Cincinnati Country Day, and John Snell's team there. He's got 4 starters back from an undefeated league championship team. Ricky Snell and Erica Armstead kind of lead that group. They combined to average 28 points last year. And then also from the MVC is Lachlan. Steve Gentry's team should also make some noise in Division IV as well.
All right, well, that wraps it up for the girls' side of the river in Ohio. Let's make our way across the river into Kentucky. Rich, when I look at this Kentucky side of things, it's going to be interesting because Boone has the best player in Northern Kentucky, or maybe Northern Kentucky history, in Randy Moss's younger daughter, Sydney Moss. And she's a phenomenal talent, but it looked like Boone wasn't going to have enough firepower other than her to necessarily be the top team. Well, somehow Nell Fuchs pulls off another transfer once again and gets Zuri Hill to move in. Not she didn't get this; it happened. Happened to move back into town. Boone County's where she's ended up. She's a top 100 type of player in the nation, a Division I potential type kid. Is going to help Moss a lot at Boone County. I look for them to be the top team in the region. But, Ryle with Jenna Crittenden, Don Johnson, Ashley Cheeseman went down with a knee injury. That hurt him a lot. But, Xavier commit Crittenden will be a load to stop. She's a combo forward that can face the basket, handle the ball, plays extremely hard, but she can also go inside and use her size and athleticism to rebound and score in the post. Notre Dame's going to be very good as well. They've got a lot returning, including Olivia Voskuhl, who's probably the most versatile player in Northern Kentucky, a true center in size. But she's a lefty with a sweet stroke out to the perimeter. She can put the ball on the deck. They do a lot of things to get her involved with the offense. Nicole Lewandowski, of course, the former Xavier standout and WNBA player, is at the helm there at Notre Dame, and she's done a pretty good job since she got there. It'll be interesting to see what she does this year, because this is sort of that year where you know how it is as a coach. The pressure all of a sudden mounts up when you're supposed to have the most talent, and she certainly has a lot of it this year.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing Nicole's team play. I know Nicole from my days at Xavier and her days there, and it's really the team that she played on her senior year in 2001 advanced to the Elite Eight. They beat Tennessee in the Sweet 16. It's amazing to see how many coaches have come from that team. I loved watching that team play together, but Nicole's coaching at Notre Dame. Amy Wall obviously is now the head coach at Xavier. Jennifer Phillips has coached some. I know Jen Parr has coached some. Retta Papari is still playing, and also Taru Tukkanen. Both of those, Retta and Taru, are from Finland. They're still playing, so I wouldn't be surprised to see them coach at some point as well. So that was just a great team that Melanie Balcom has, and I'm looking forward to seeing Nicole's team play this year.
Yeah, they're going to be really good, and if she can get she can get the most out of them. See, the thing is, though, when you look at girls basketball in Northern Kentucky, it's the 33rd district, which has Boone, Ryle, and then another top 10 team in Connor that maybe even might be a top 5 team and would be the best team in a lot of districts. It's really tough to get out of there. And then you talk about the 35th district, and you've probably got 2 top 5 teams in that district as well, with Notre Dame that we've talked about, and Holy Cross, who has Deasia Beal and Jaden Julian, 2 phenomenal athletes. Deasia Beal's been a starter since her freshman year, played as an 8th grader. Jaden Julian, a phenomenal volleyball player, tore her knee at the end of the last basketball season, and a lot of people didn't think she would come back and play basketball. She made it back. She is going to play, and that'll be a huge help for Coach Beal at Holy Cross this year. He's entering his 2nd year after serving in as an assistant at both Notre Dame and as a boys' assistant at Covington Catholic. And then finally, we haven't even talked about the last year's regional winner, and that was Newport Central Catholic. They lost a ton. Brittany Fryer, several seniors off that team. That was the reason that they won a regional championship. But they do return a big part, literally, in Nicole Kiernan, who's a center that is extremely skilled, very strong, very athletic. She's a standout volleyball player as well. But she's going to be one of the top players in the region, and definitely the top player in the district, just entering her 2nd season. It'll be great to watch her develop this year. And I think she'll be enough to go along with some of the young girls like Olivia Huber, who'll be running the point for her 2nd year. She played some varsity last year. And Jamie Cole's a very athletic forward who's always had flashes of brilliance, and then coupled with some turnovers. If she can get it going and mature a little bit on the offensive side, she could be a big player as well for them. And of course, Aubrey Mensch, a great athlete, a soccer player as well, can really run the floor, knock down open jump shots, and rebound.
Sounds like it's going to be a great girls high school basketball season in Northern Kentucky again. We're going to go to a break, and we're going to have our last segment coming up after the break. We're going to look ahead to the week that's going to happen with your girls' high school season starting, and also talk a little bit of local colleges as well after this. You're listening to Cincy Hoops Talk. I'm Rich Hoyt with Rick Broy. Rich Hoyt back with Rick Broy on Cincy Hoops Talk. Our last segment here. Let's talk a little bit of local colleges, just kind of the week ahead for a couple of our Division I men's basketball teams. First, for Xavier, Chris Mack's squad has a challenging week ahead after Friday night's battle against Georgia. They're going to travel to Nashville to play against Vanderbilt and the Commodores Monday night. Really big game. Vanderbilt's a team that has a lot of high expectations this year in the SEC. Kevin Stallings' team looking to make a run in the tournament this year. And then Xavier's going to return home to play Purdue on Saturday. So, Rick, you cover the Musketeers for Musketeer Report. It's going to be a challenge for them this year. But a couple of those games that, really when they put their schedule together, they really like to have as part of their tournament resume.
And this is what they've done in years past. And what it does is, yes, you lose a couple of games non-conference, but you're going to finish strong in the A-10, so you can afford to lose a couple games and learn some things early on and get yourself battle-tested. Georgia's young. They're inexperienced. It's a game Xavier should win, but, Xavier's not playing their best ball yet either. That'll be a good game for them to sort of warm up. Hopefully, for their sake, they come out with a win leading in that Vanderbilt game, because that's going to be a battle. John Jenkins can really shoot the ball. Vanderbilt, a very talented team, as you mentioned, some high expectations there. Then Purdue, it's going to be really interesting because they're playing pretty well also. There's some interesting matchups in that game. It's going to be fun to see how the two coaches go cat and mouse against each other and how they try to exploit their matchup advantages. that'll be a fun game. So Xavier has a really fun 3-game stretch with both teams having some talented young players in the Georgia game, and then 2 great games against Vanderbilt and Purdue where the teams look fairly evenly matched talent-wise. It's going to be, as you mentioned, a very difficult stretch, but a fun one for the fans.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. I'm looking particularly forward to the Purdue game. I love watching Robbie Hummel play. I always have throughout his career, and now that he's healthy again, it's going to be fun. I'm still going to be cheering on the Musketeers on next Saturday, but that should be a fun game. Cincinnati, the Bearcats, obviously, they bounced back a little bit after their loss to Presbyterian. That surprise. They're going to host Charlie Coles and his Miami Redhawks on Tuesday night here in Cincinnati. And, Charlie Coles' teams are always fun to watch, I think, and are always going to give you your best. Should be a competitive game.
But not as fun as this press conference. So sorry to watch.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely. And then after that battle between Miami and Cincinnati on Tuesday, UC will play that same Georgia team Friday in the Big East SEC Challenge. So Georgia kind of going through their own Queen City gauntlet.
Yeah, the Midwest swing there for the Bulldogs. UC, though, it's going to be very interesting to see how they bounce back here because, the Presbyterian loss obviously made some fans just lose their minds, and that is the danger of playing the schedule UC plays. Yeah. I mean, you're really playing nobody up until your conference schedule other than Xavier and Georgia. So you really couldn't afford to lose a game like Presbyterian in there. That's really going to hurt them. They've got to try to win out from here until the Big East, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Remember, you can keep up with all of our local college action here around the greater Cincinnati, Northern Kentucky area on CincyHoopsTalk.com. The scoreboard has updates for all of your local colleges each night that they are in action, both men and women. So be sure to check that for your favorite team's scores. A couple other notes as the girls' high school season gets underway. Saturday, a big day at Cincinnati State. The Cincinnati Sports Medicine Shootout, girls basketball shootout, will take place. A lot of good teams on display there. And then a couple really key games early in the season. We talked about these teams. Wednesday night, Princeton and the Mitchell sisters and Jill Phillips squad will travel to St. Ursula. I mentioned St. Ursula has a couple Division I players as well. A little GMC, GGCL rival. Really could be the best team out of each conference. They're going to do battle over there at St. Ursula. And then also Lakota East, who another team which could be the best team in the GMC. They're going to go across the river and play against that Notre Dame Academy team that we talked about, Nicole Lewandowski's group.
That'll be a fun game. And, Lakota East is going to be to say the least, a great test for Notre Dame and something they will not see on the 859, in the 859 this year. So that game is going to be a great warm-up for that team, but it'll be interesting to see how they fare. Hopefully they learn something from it and not just get their brains beat in.
Yeah, that's going to be a matchup of coaches that were former teammates at Xavier. Nikki Kramer-Drew from Lakota East and Nicole Lewandowski from Notre Dame. So that should be a good one. Well, that's going to be a wrap for our second podcast here of Cincy Hoops Talk. Rick, thanks a lot for all of your assistance tonight. It's been a lot of fun.
Always a pleasure.
And looking forward to doing it some more. Moving forward throughout this week, we are going to post a couple blogs throughout this week where we're going to talk about and list the top players in the greater Cincinnati and Northern Kentucky areas, and also give you a list of some of the top games in the area that you'll want to put on your calendar and try to get out to see. Next Saturday's podcast will be uploaded Saturday morning, December 3rd. We're going to have recaps of all of the high school action from Friday night, December 2nd. That's opening night in Ohio, and it's opening weekend in Northern Kentucky. We'll talk with coaches and other guests and get a full rundown of the week's action. Remember, with the seasons beginning for most of the high school teams, if you're a coach, if you're a player, if you're a fan, anybody, please be sure to email us, tweet us, Facebook us, all of the scores, whether it be girls, boys, high school, local colleges, whatever it might be. Feel free to email that, cincyhoopstalk@gmail.com. Cincy is C-I-N-C-Y. So cincyhoopstalk@gmail.com. Our Twitter handle, you can tweet us at cincyhoopstalk, or you can Facebook message us at cincyhoopstalk.com. Rick, thanks again. This is our second podcast of Cincy Hoops Talk with Rick Broering. I'm Rich Hoyt. Have a great rest of your Thanksgiving weekend, and let's go watch some hoops.